Students, Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. Welcome in the class. Today we will discuss why democracy, the advantages of democracy. Our discussion is based on Robert Dahl's book on democracy. It's chapter 5. In this chapter, Robert Dahl asks, why should we choose to support democracy? Specifically, why is democracy the best way to run the whole country? A country's government is very unique, Robert Dahl says. It has an amazing power to make everyone follow its rules. The government can use force, the government can use threats, or even it can use violence to get people to obey. So, are there any better ways to govern a country? Until very recently, almost everyone on earth had to live under undemocratic rulers. These rulers often tried to make their systems sound fair. They used a very old excuse: most regular people are simply not smart enough to run the government. This was the excuse used by the rulers, that most regular people, most common people, are simply not smart enough to run the government. They said that citizens would be better off if they just let wiser people rule. This wise group was often a small handful of people, or sometimes just one leader, but good arguments were not enough to keep control. Those rulers, they did not have good arguments in favor of their government. When arguments failed, they started using force to make people obey. Most citizens never actually agreed to be ruled by these self appointed leaders. They were simply forced to follow the rules. Even today, this old way of thinking and ruling is still around. The big fight is still going on. What is the big fight? Who should govern? The one, the few, or the many? Now, words about words. In your book, you can see there is a box. Its title is Words About Words. Here, Robert Dahl says, when I use the word democracy here, I mean real life governments. I am not talking about a perfect dream version of government. These real democracies meet most of the requirements, but not every single one. Sometimes I also say popular government. This is a broader term that covers more types of ruling systems. It includes the modern democratic countries we have today. It also includes older systems that were democratic in many ways. The only problem with those older systems was that many adults were not allowed to vote or take part in politics. We see so much history of different kinds of rule. But why should we still think democracy is best? I will count the reasons why we should choose it. When we compare democracy to any other system, we could actually build it has at least 10 advantages. Number 1, democracy helps to prevent government by cruel and vicious autocrats. The biggest problem in all of politics is trying to avoid rule by an autocrat. Autocrats are the rulers who are who are dictators. Dictators are called autocrats. An autocrat is a cruel leader with total power. Cruel leader with total power. Throughout all of history, this has been a huge issue even today. Some leaders are driven by things like massive ego. Massive ego, बड़ी अनाह होती है उनके अंदर. Megalomania. It is called megalomania. अनाप्रस्थ. Others are scared and suspicious of everyone. It is called paranoia. Paranoia. इनको लगता है कि हर कोई हमारे खिलाफ साजिश कर रहा है. Some just care about their own money and power. Some of the rulers just care about their own money and power. Others are led by very strong, sometimes dangerous beliefs. These leaders use the country's power, force, and violence to get what they want. Country's power means the state's force and violence. The terrible cost of this kind of absolute rule is huge. It causes much suffering, it causes widespread hunger, and it causes war. Joseph Stalin ruled the Soviet Union from 1929 to 1953. He jailed millions of people because he was terribly paranoid. He thought that many Russians were conspiring against him. He feared that everyone was plotting against him. About 20 million people died under his rule. 20 million people. They died from executions, forced labor camps, और severe famine. एग्जीक्यूशन फांसी को कहते हैं. जोसेफ स्टालिन ने करोड़ों लोगों को फांसियां लगवा दी, लाखों करोड़ों को. They died from executions, forced labor camps, or a severe famine. The famine happened because he made farmers work on state-run farms. जोसेफ स्टालिन ने लोगों से उनकी ज़मीनें ले ली, हुकूमत के कब्जे में ले ली. फिर उनसे कहता था कि यहाँ पे आप मजदूरों की तरह काम करो. तो उससे पैदावार कम हो गई और लोग कैसे मरने लगे, कैसे बेशुमार लोग मर गए. फैमिन. Adolf Hitler led Nazi Germany from 1933 to 1945. He was ruler of Germany from 1933 to 1945, 12-13 years. Hitler killed countless opponents, Poles, and other groups he wanted to wipe out completely. Poles, Poland. Pole is the nationality of Poland. पोलैंड के रहने वालों को पोल्स कहते हैं. Hitler killed countless opponents, Poles, and other groups he wanted to wipe out completely. Pol Pot ruled Cambodia with his group, the Khmer Rouge, 1975 to 1979. There was a Khmer Rouge was a political party in Cambodia. Pol Pot was its leader. He ruled Cambodia from 1975 to 1979, 4 years. This party, this government killed 1/4 of the entire Cambodian population. आप ये देखें, इतनी बड़ी डिक्टेटरशिप थी कि कंबोडिया की जितनी आबादी थी सारी, उसका चौथा हिस्सा उन्होंने कत्ल कर दिया, हुकूमत ने. This was a huge self-inflicted tragedy. Pol Pot was extremely scared of educated people. पढ़े लिखे लोगों से वो बड़ा डरता था. उसका उनको बड़ा खौफ रहता था पॉल पॉट को. Almost all educated people were killed in Cambodia. You could be executed just for wearing glasses or having hands that were not rough from working. अगर आपके हाथ नरमो नाजुक हैं तो वो कहते थे आप तो काम ही नहीं करते, तो इसी बात पर वो कत्ल कर देती थी हुकूमत. We must be honest, the history of popular rule is not perfect. अच्छा, एक तरफ तो बता रहे रॉबर्ट डाल के जो डिक्टेटर्स होते हैं, डिक्टेटरशिप्स होती हैं, वो बड़ा जुल्म करते हैं ना, उससे बड़ा खतरा होता है. लेकिन वो कह रहे हैं कि जो हमें इंसाफ की बात करें तो जमहूरियत में भी कुछ मसाइल होते हैं. The history of popular rule is not perfect. Like all governments, democratic governments have sometimes been cruel or unfair. This usually happens toward people outside their country. We are talking about people like foreigners or people in colonies. अब जैसे वो बरतानिया में जमहूरियत थी, लेकिन वो उन्होंने यहाँ पे आके इंडिया में जो हुकूमत की वो गैर जमहूरी थी और वो डिक्टेटोरियल थी, आमराना तर्ज था, लोगों को वो जुल्म करते थे, ज्यादती करते थे यहाँ इंडियंस के साथ। तो ये कह रहा है रॉबर्ट डाल कि जो जमहूरी हुकूमतें होती हैं उन वो भी गलत करती हैं। We are talking about people like foreigners or people in colonies. Democratic countries have behaved no worse than non democratic ones toward outsiders and often better. हाँ, लेकिन वो कह रहा है कि ये जो जमहूरी मुल्क होते हैं ना, ये भी दूसरे मुल्कों के लोगों के साथ, फॉरेनर के साथ गलत करते हैं, लेकिन जो डिक्टेटर्स होते हैं वो इनसे भी ज़्यादा गलत करते हैं। यानी जितनी नाइंसाफ़ी डिक्टेटर्स आमराना हुकूमतें करती हैं फॉरेनर्स के साथ, जमहूरी हुकूमतें शायद उतनी नहीं करती। और फिर ये है कि जो इनका होता है फॉरेनर के साथ रवैया, जमहूरी हुकूमतों का रवैया, वो आमराना हुकूमतों की निस्बत बेहतर होता है, ऑफ़न बेटर। In some places, the colonial power actually helped create democratic ideas. Still, we should not excuse the unfair things democratic countries have done to outsiders. When they do this, they go against a basic moral idea. This is the same moral idea that helps us say why all citizens should be equal. The only way to fix this problem might be a universal code of human rights for the whole world. These rights would have to be strongly enforced everywhere. This is a huge problem. A much bigger challenge for democracy is the unfair things it does to some people inside the country. अच्छा, बाज़ का जो जमहूरी हुकूमत होती है, मुल्क के अंदर भी कुछ ग्रोहों के साथ, कुछ लोगों के साथ नाइंसाफ़ी कर जाती हैं। These are people who must obey the laws, but they are not allowed to help make those laws. They are ruled by the government, but they cannot rule themselves. Luckily, the answer to this is clear, even if it's hard to do. The solution is to give democratic rights to all of these groups that are left out. This solution was actually used a lot in the 1800s and early 1900s. During that time, the rules about who could vote were removed. Eventually, universal adult suffrage became the standard. यूनिवर्सल अडल्ट सफरेज का ये है, मतलब ये है कि तमाम बालगों को वोट का हक है, तमाम बालिग शहरियों को। यूनिवर्सल अडल्ट सफरेज, सफरेज वोट के हक को कहते हैं। दिस मीन्स ऑल adults कैन वोट। You might ask, can a democratic government still hurt a small group of citizens? These citizens have the right to vote, but they are simply outvoted by the bigger group, the majority. Isn't this exactly what people mean by the tyranny of the majority? Almost every single law or government action causes some people some harm. Almost every single law or government action causes some people some harm. अब देखिए, जब भी हुकूमत कानून बनाती है तो उसके मुताबिक कुछ लोगों पे कुछ पाबंदी लग जाती है ना, तो कुछ ना कुछ तंगी तकलीफ लोगों को पहुंचती है कानून बनाने से। दिस इज ट्रू नो मैटर हु मेक्स द लॉ। जितनी मर्जी भी अच्छी हुकूमत होगी, जब कवानीन बनाएगी तो उन कवानीन की लोग मुखालफत करते हैं। It happens if the law is passed by a democratic majority. It happens if the law is passed by a rich, small group, oligarchic minority. It even happens if the law is passed by a kind dictator, benign dictator. The real point is not whether a government can make laws that never hurt anyone. No government in history, not even a democratic one, can promise that. Democracies are much, much less cruel than नॉन डेमोक्रेटिक कंट्रीज. अब वो रबर डाल ये कह रहा है कि जो गैर मुंतखब हुकूमतें होती हैं, गैर जमहूरी हुकूमतें होती हैं, वो भी ज़्यादतियाँ करती हैं. जो जमहूरी हुकूमतें होती हैं वो भी, उनसे भी नाइंसाफ़ियाँ और ज़्यादतियाँ होती हैं, लेकिन फ़र्क ये है कि जो जमहूरी हुकूमतें हैं उनकी ज़्यादतियाँ उतनी ज़्यादा नहीं होती, उनकी नाइंसाफ़ियाँ उतनी ज़्यादा और उतनी शदीद नहीं होती जितनी आमराना हुकूमतों की होती हैं. जितनी गैर जमहूरी हुकूमतें जो है ना वो ज़्यादा ज़ालिम होती हैं, ज़्यादा नाइंसाफ़ी करती हैं. बट जस्ट बिकॉज ऑफ दैट वी कैनॉट रिलैक्स एंड थिंक everything is great. We cannot be complacent. We can't say it's okay to commit a small injustice just because others commit bigger ones. Even when a democratic country follows all the right rules, if it acts unfairly, it is still an injustice. Just having power, majority might, does not automatically make the majority right. The second advantage of democracy: democracy guarantees its citizens a number of fundamental rights that non democratic systems do not and cannot grant. Democracy guarantees its citizens a number of fundamental rights that non democratic systems do not and cannot grant. Democracy is much more than just a process of ruling. Rights are a necessary part of how democratic governments work. Because of this, democracy is actually a system of rights. Think about the basic rules of democracy. It is obvious that citizens need certain rights to meet these rules. Take the rule of effective participation. Effective participation means people must have a right to participate. They need a right to share their views on political matters. They need to hear what other people are saying. They must be able to discuss things with fellow citizens. Now, think about the rule of voting equality. Voting equality का जो उसूल है, it means citizens must have the right to vote. Their votes must also be counted in a fair way. The other rules of democracy work the same way. Citizens need a right to look at different options. They need a right to help decide what topics the government should work on. If any political system actually does all those things, gives the right to participate, gives the right to vote, etc., it automatically becomes a democracy. This is more than just a small technical detail. If those rights are not given to the people, the system is not truly democratic. This is true no matter what the leaders say. Any claim to democracy without these rights is just a facade. Any claim to democracy without these rights is just a facade. That is not the reality. It is simply a fake front for a non democratic government. Imagine that in a non democratic country, citizens somehow gain all the rights needed for democracy. This means those rights become a real practical reality. If that happens, the country has officially become a democracy. This change happened many times during the second half of the 1900s. यानी 20वीं सदी के दूसरे हाफ में. Rights like free speech are needed for democracy to exist. It is a necessary condition, not just in words but in the real world. Several conditions make democracy last. One of these conditions is having widespread democratic beliefs. This belief must be common among citizens and leaders. This includes a belief in all the rights and opportunities democracy must provide. Fortunately, the need for these key rights is not a huge secret. When Thomas Jefferson was elected president in 1800, he quickly ended the Bad Alien and Sedition Acts. These acts, put in place by John Adams, would have crushed free political speech. These acts were put in place by John Adams, and these acts would have crushed free political speech. Jefferson did this because of his own beliefs, but also because most ordinary citizens agreed with him. When many citizens stop understanding that democracy needs these basic rights, the democracy is in danger. If they stop supporting the groups that protect those rights, like courts, the country is at risk. Now, pay attention to this again. When many citizens stop understanding that democracy needs these basic rights, the democracy is in danger. So, here we need to understand that for a democratic culture, for a democratic society, it is important that all citizens respect the rights of others. They should not hurt others, they should not shout at them, they should not harass them. If they have any problem, if they have any complaint against them, they should they should talk to the state authorities, they should talk to police, they should talk to the courts. But personally, harassing other citizens, attacking other citizens, or uh, torturing others, it is a dangerous attitude. It will lead to the murder of democracy in the long run. So no party, no leader, no workers of no party should attack the workers and leaders of other parties personally. If there are personal attacks, it simply means the people are going away from democracy. It is not a democratic behavior, it is not a democratic attitude. If they stop supporting the groups that protect those rights, like courts, the country is at risk. Fortunately, this danger is a little smaller because of the third big benefit of democratic systems. The third benefit of democracy, the third advantage, democracy ensures its citizens a broader range of personal freedom than any feasible alternative to it. Democracy ensures its citizens a broader range of personal freedom than any feasible alternative to it, than any other form of government. A belief in democracy does not exist all by itself. For most people, it's part of a whole group of beliefs. This group includes the idea that freedom of expression is a good thing on its own. Free expression is valuable even outside of politics. Democracy has a very important place in the world of good things, values. In the world of values, democracy has a very important role. But it is not the only good thing. Democracy is not the only value. Just like the other rights needed for democracy, free expression has its own value. It is important because it helps people think for themselves. Moral autonomy. Freedom of expression gives people moral autonomy. It helps people make good choices, moral judgment, and it helps them live a good life. Democracy needs its citizens to create a helpful political culture. This is a general culture that supports democratic ideas and practices. The link between the democratic government and this culture is complicated. A democratic culture will always stress the value of personal freedom. This in turn helps provide support for even more rights and liberties. The Greek statesman Pericles said something important in 431 BCE, before Christ era. This quote is still true for modern democracy. Pericles said, "The freedom we enjoy in our government extends also to our ordinary life." This idea that democracy gives the most freedom is sometimes challenged. This challenge comes from anarchists. Anarchists claim we would all be freer if the government were abolished completely. If the state were abolished completely, would all be freer. But imagine a world with absolutely no state at all. अब यहाँ पे रॉबर्ट डाली कह रहा है कि कुछ लोग जो है वो इस पे तनकीद करते हैं कि जो डेमोक्रेटिक गवर्नमेंट होती है उसके अंदर हमें आज़ादी हासिल होती है। तो जो लोग इस पे तनकीद करते हैं उनमें से कुछ अनारकिस्ट हैं। अनारकिस्ट कहते हैं कि हुकूमत ही तो मसले की असल जड़ है, रियासत ही मसले की जड़ है। ये कवानीन बनाती है, ये इसके पास जो है ना पुलिस होती है, लॉ एनफोर्समेंट एजेंसीज होती हैं, पावर होती है, जिससे ये लोगों को ख्वार करते हैं, जलील करते हैं, टार्चर करते हैं, सज़ाएँ देते हैं। तो ना ही रियासत और हुकूमत हो और ना ही ये सारा मसला हो। तो ये उनकी एक तनकीद है। रॉबर्ट हाल कहता है कि आप ये सोचें कि दुनिया में कोई रियासत ना हो तो फिर क्या हो? Imagine a world with absolutely no state at all. In this world, everyone respects all rights. All group decisions are made peacefully and everyone agrees on everything. Most people agree that this imagined world is impossible. अब ये देखें, वो कह रहा है कि जी एक ऐसी दुनिया जिसमें कोई रियासत ना हो, कोई हुकूमत ना हो, कोई पुलिस ना हो, कोई फौज ना हो और सब लोग अमन से रहते हों, सब लोग एक दूसरे के हकूक़ का ख़्याल रखते हों, हकूक़ का एहतराम करते हों, सारे अपने मसाइल जो है ना वो पुरअमन तरीके से प्यार मोहब्बत से हल करते हों, तो ज़ाहिर है फिर तो ज़रूरत ही नहीं है, ना रियासत की, ना हुकूमत की। लेकिन मसला क्या है? मोस्ट पीपल एग्री दैट दिस इमेजिन्ड वर्ल्ड इज़ इम्पॉसिबल। वो कहता है कि अक्सर लोग इस बात पर इत्तेफाक करते हैं कि ये ख्वाबों की दुनिया है, ये ख्यालों की दुनिया है। हकीकत में ऐसा मुमकिन नहीं है कि दुनिया में कोई रियासत ना हो, हुकूमत ना हो, कोई कानून नाफ़िज़ करने वाले इदारे ना हों और फिर भी दुनिया में अमन ही अमन और चैन ही चैन और शांति ही शांति हो। ये ये अहमकों की जन्नत में रहने वाली बात है। If there were no rules, people would start forcing others to obey. अगर कोई कायदे कवानीन नहीं होंगे दुनिया में, तो जो ताकतवर होंगे वो कमज़ोरों को दबाने लगेंगे, उनके ऊपर वो यानी मुसल्लत हो जाएँगे। They would try to rob people of their hard work. They would enslave or dominate those who are weaker. Someone would likely try to set up a new harsh government to take control. If ending the state causes terrible violence and chaos, anarchy, then a good state is better. It is better than the bad, harsh state that is sure to pop up after the chaos. वो कह रहा है कि अगर आप सारी दुनिया से सारी रियासतें हुकूमतें ख़त्म कर दें, तो कोई ना कोई जो है ना वो अपना जत्था बना लेगा, अपना छोटा-मोटा लश्कर बना के, तो वो लोगों पे मुसल्लत हो जाएगा और वो पहले वाली रियासत और हुकूमत से ज़्यादा बुरा होगा। तो उससे बेहतर ये है कि मौजूदा निज़ाम जो जैसे भी हैं, आप इनको कबूल करें, इनके साथ चलें, इनको स्ट्रेंथन करें और इनको इम्प्रूव करें, इनको बेहतर बनाएँ। It is better than the bad, harsh state that is sure to pop up after the chaos. क्योंकि अगर वो कह रहे हैं कि अगर ये मौजूदा रियासतों और हुकूमतों को ख़त्म कर दें कि तो इसके बाद जो रियासती हुकूमत उभरेगी और वो लाज़मी उभरेगी, तो वो इससे कई गुना वो इससे बुरी तो होगी, लाज़मन बुरी होगी, वो इससे बेहतर नहीं होगी। So, we must agree that having a government is necessary. If we agree on that, then a democratic government will offer the most freedom of any choice. तो वो कह रहे हैं कि आर्डर को मेंटेन रखने के लिए, अमन को कायम रखने के लिए किसी न किसी किस्म की हुकूमत लाज़मी है, ज़रूरी है, नागुज़ीर है। और अगर हुकूमत नागुज़ीर है तो बेहतर ये है कि भई एक जमहूरी हुकूमत हो, क्योंकि उसमें आप लोगों को ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा फ्रीडम भी होगी। द थर्ड एडवांटेज, आज हम इसके 10 एडवांटेजेस हैं टोटल इस चैप्टर में। आज हम 5 कंप्लीट करेंगे और 5 अगली क्लास में करेंगे। 1-2 और कर लेते हैं, तो ये फिर आधे हो जाएंगे। डेमोक्रेसी हेल्प्स पीपल टू प्रोटेक्ट देयर ओन फंडामेंटल interests. Everyone wants some basic things in life. This includes survival, food, a home, health, love and respect. सब लोग ये चीज़ें चाहते हैं, उनको चाहिए। It also includes satisfying work and free time. Layer. People also need and want layer. The things you want will be a little different from what others want. Like most people, you want to control the things that help you get what you want. You want some freedom of choice. You want the chance to shape your life based on your own beliefs and goals. Democracy protects this freedom better than any other political system. No one explained this idea better than John Stuart Mill. He wrote that this is a truth that applies to all human affairs. John Stuart wrote, this is a truth that applies to all human affairs. Your rights and interests are safe from being ignored. This is true when you are able to and always ready to stand up for yourself. John Stuart Mill also said, you can only protect your rights from bad government behavior if you can participate fully in the government. Therefore, he concluded, the only choice we should ultimately want is one. That choice is to allow all people to share in the ruling power of the country. अब ये देखें कि वो कह रहे हैं कि जी अगर हमने अपने मफादात का तहफ़्फ़ुज़ करना है, तो उसका बेहतरीन और एक ही बेहतरीन तरीका है कि सब लोगों को सियासत में हिस्सा लेने का हक हो। जो हुकूमत की ताकत है, उसमें सब लोग हिस्सा ले सकें, शेयर उनका हो। दैट सिस्टम इज़ ए डेमोक्रेटिक गवर्नमेंट और इसी को जमहूरियत कहते हैं। मिल was certainly right about this. Even if you are allowed to vote in a democracy, you cannot be totally true. You cannot be totally sure. Even if you are allowed to vote in a democracy, you cannot be totally sure. You cannot be sure all of your personal interests will be completely protected. But if you are excluded, not allowed to vote, you can be very sure your interests will be seriously hurt by either neglect or direct damage. It is simply better to be included than excluded. रॉबर्ट डाल ये कह रहा है कि आप लोग वोट देते हैं तब भी आपको यकीन नहीं होता, यकीन गारंटी नहीं होती कि आपके जो मफादात हैं उनको नुकसान नहीं पहुंचेगा। और तसव्वुर करें कि अगर आपको वोट देने का हक भी ना हो, तो फिर आपके मफादात का क्या बनेगा? फिर तो बहुत ही मनमानी करेगी ना हुकूमत। अभी तो हुकूमत डरती है कि उसने आपसे वोट लेना है, तो वो कुछ आपके मफादात का ख्याल रखती है। The fifth advantage: only a democratic government can provide a maximum opportunity for persons to exercise the freedom of self determination, that is, to live under laws of their own choosing. I repeat, only a democratic government can provide a maximum opportunity for persons to exercise the freedom of self determination. The freedom to self determination means to live under laws of their own choosing. यानी लोग उन कवानीन के मुताबिक ज़िंदगी गुजारें जो कवानीन वो खुद बनाएं। ये सिर्फ जमहूरियत में ही मुमकिन है। No human can have a satisfying life unless they live with other people. But living with others comes at a cost. You cannot always do exactly what you want. As you grew up, you learned a basic truth. What you want sometimes clashes with what others want. You also learn that groups you belong to have rules. As a member, you must also obey these rules. Therefore, you cannot simply use force to get your way. You must find a way to solve your disagreements peacefully, perhaps by all agreeing on something. This brings up a question that has confused people for ages. It puzzles both thinkers and rulers. How do you get to choose the rules that your group forces you to follow? This question is especially important because of the state's power. The government has a huge ability to use force to make you obey its laws. So, this is vital to your life as a citizen. How can you be free to choose the laws that the country enforces? If you and your fellow citizens always agreed, the answer would be very easy. You would all simply agree on every law. In fact, you might not even need laws at all. The rules would only be there as a simple reminder. By obeying those rules, you would really be obeying yourself. In this perfect world, the whole problem would disappear. This total harmony would make the dream of anarchism come true. But lasting agreement that everyone truly supports is very rare. Perfect, endless consensus is a goal we cannot reach. So, our difficult question still remains unresolved. You will notice that these fair standards are part of the ideal democratic process. This process cannot promise that all people will literally live under the laws they chose. However, it stretches your freedom to choose as far as possible. The freedom to choose is self determination. Even if you are among the citizens whose choice is outvoted by the majority, you can still decide that this process is fairer than any other option. By choosing to live under a democratic system instead of an unfair one, you are freely choosing the rules. To that degree, you are still exercising your freedom of self determination. So, here we stop today. The next five advantages we will discuss in the next class. So, I close the YouTube, and then we will discuss on WhatsApp. I am joining you on WhatsApp in a while, in a few seconds.